Hello. So, most of my analysis of AI has been kind of process led. This is a complete polemic, and if you're not into polemics, this is the time to turn it off. I want to discuss the problem of the shed, and let me describe what I think the shed problem is. So, there's lots of really interesting discussion about how we make use of AI in higher education and around assessment. And people have come up with some really innovative, interesting ideas about how we incorporate AI into writing and assessment. And, lots of really interesting things. But, this is where the polemic comes in. At the other end of the scale, there's what I consider an almost delusional line of thought, which is why don't we design assessment as if students are locked into a shed with no electricity, right? This is just, it blows my mind. I find it mind blowing. Listen to me. Computers exist and computers exist in society, right? I have talked before that this stuff is going to get integrated into Word, Google Documents. Microsoft was discussing the other day that it's going to be integrated into Bing. Google is currently exceptionally worried about how these kind of tools will impact its search business, and the search business makes up the majority of its revenue. However, whatever your stance is on AI, whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent, whether you think we should move back to students doing things in time conditions in rooms, it is inescapable that this stuff will be ubiquitous in society. So as soon as it's baked into things like, or incorporated rather than baked into things like Word and Google Documents, they will be baked in a frictionless way. What I mean by frictionless is one of the core concepts of UX design and software design, which we see in social media. You want to make interactions frictionless. You want to make them so they're really easy to use. And if you're really good at it, they delight the user because they help the user solve a problem. Listen to me, right? This stuff, it's not students will go off to websites to use it. It's going to be in Word. And so the idea that we put them in this metaphorical shed with no electricity, it doesn't make any sense as an idea, because how exactly would any of this work? So you would literally end up in a situation of saying, well, they will have to come and do stuff in time conditions. Okay, I accept that. You could do exams, you could do timed writing tests, right? But as soon as you move away from that and say, but what are we actually preparing students to do? Are we preparing students to work in an environment where AI is ubiquitous? It all starts to become a bit of a nonsense. And if we step away from students for a moment and consider academics, there's all sorts of concerns about, well, what if academics start using this technology? Listen to me. Academics are already using this technology. Give it 4 or 5 years when it's baked into Word and Google Docs. It will be ubiquitous in its use by academics. And the thing I want to be really clear about this, people say, well, I won't use it. I won't use it. Okay, so you're not using the spell check, right? Of course you're using the spell checker. You're writing out your essays by hand because you think that typing things out is some sort of cheat. It will become so ubiquitous that I've mentioned this before. I've experimented with using this to write some of my emails. Give it a couple of days. You have no idea which elements you wrote and what was written by the software. Ubiquitous use of AI and large language models in word processing is going to be ubiquitous. And give it 4 or 5 years and saying, well, people shouldn't do this. Honestly, it will be as much sense as saying to people, well, you shouldn't use Excel because Excel has an auto sum function, right? Don't learn those formulas in Excel because that's cheating. It's a nonsense. Computers exist, and regardless if we want them to exist or not, they do. AI exists, and regardless if we want people to use them or not, they will. So we have to get to a place of reality. Use your mentality, as Frank Sinatra once said. We have to think about, yes, there are opportunities for people to cheat. There are opportunities for people to mislead about how they've used these tools. But that's always existed with a range of tools. I wrote an article about 10 years ago with a colleague, Sam Pryke, about how people were concerned about Wikipedia. Doing a follow-up at the moment, by the way. The thing about this is, it's here, right, already. There's nothing we can do to stop it. There's no point with all of the kind of weird arbitrary things that people are going to invent. Well, we'll tell the students that if they use a word processor as AI in it, that they should be careful not to click that button or that button. Come on, let's get real. Let's accept reality as it is. And by the way, I'm not trying to skate over all of the ethical things around AI and all the things we know about discrimination, things we know about AI tools hoovering up artists' work and reincorporating that to generate models. I know, I'm not saying any of these things should occur outside of ethical and legal frameworks. All my desperate plea is, do not retreat into a fantasy. The fantasy that people want to retreat into is the idea that we can design systems and models that will somehow exclude all of these things, in the same way that potentially we try and write a model that excludes electricity. There is my rant. I hope you have a nice day.